Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, September 8th, 2025. We're here this morning for a work session, and our discussion item is the Climate Smart and Future Ready Land Use and Hazard Mitigation Update. I'm Kristen Stevens, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. With me are my fellow commissioners, Commissioner John Kafalis and Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally. Lorinda Volker, our county manager, is here with us. Many other folks are here, but I'm going to turn things over to Heidi Pruis, who is our Sustainability and Climate Manager, and have you kick us off.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you today. We have had in the past many updates on Climate Smart Future Ready because we've been working on Climate Smart Future Ready for over a year. Just as a reminder, there are 4 focus areas or large bucket areas for Climate Smart Future Ready. And one of the things that you'll see as I run through these is that there's a theme. And the theme is what we're going to be talking about today, which is land use. So one of those focus areas is the built environment, circular economy, business, and jobs. This group, we've brought some reports back to you with regard to our buildings, our footprint, how it is we're using energy, and how it is that our workforce is being trained to work on those buildings, as well as our landfill. And you've received several updates with regard to circular economy from our solid waste director, Dwayne Penny. The second focus area is around mobility. Mobility of people, goods, and services. You've also heard land use related topics here with regard to electric vehicle charging stations, our biking and walking trails, and regional transportation overall. Our third bucket area there is natural environment, water, and agriculture. Of course, there's lots of connections to land here. In particular, maybe in the next quarterly update, you'll be receiving some update around soil health and land stewardship policy. The connection point there in between does include other things than land use. This connection in between focuses on health impacts in our community, as well as legislative affairs policy that kind of spans across these different focus areas. So today we are here to focus in on this land use and disaster mitigation team update for you. There are 4 different items that we are going to walk through and share this update with you of how they are connected. The land use team is championed by Rebecca Everett, who unfortunately could not be here today, but she's here in spirit with us. We have staff here that are going to be speaking to these topics, but this team is focusing on aligning the goals and the priorities, not just related to greenhouse gas emission reduction, but also growth management, wildlife corridors, water, air quality. The list goes on. And you can see here at the bottom that there are 2 bullets. One action item in this first year was to conduct a plans inventory, so we're going to talk about that. Another one was to identify elements within those plans to integrate them together. We're also going to talk about that. And you can see that the members on the team that are working on these topics include a member from Colorado State University's Institute for the Built Environment, as well as our North Front Range MPO, together with representatives from many of our county departments that are listed there for you. So this is a very thoughtful group, a group of planners, which is really exciting. Okay, so the first project that we're going to talk about is a regional plan inventory. This is where we started the work about a year ago. We were very fortunate to receive a student from CSU who was a UDOS scholar and put together this really fantastic tool that I'm going to try to pop over and show you how it works. I will highlight for you here the way that this inventory was created was to break out in alignment with the categories that are in Climate Smart Future Ready, just as a framework to start from when you're beginning to sort through this individual plans inventory. But let me go here and show you live time. So if you go to the Climate Smart Future Ready website and you scroll down to the middle of the page here, it says right here in this pink box at the bottom, or tan, or I'm not sure what color that is, Regional Plan Inventory for Larimer County. And when you select this, this is a live interactive tool that allows for you to sort through along these key topics. There are 50 community plans, local plans in Larimer County that are inventoried here. And this was made in order to provide a easier working space for planners to go through and sort through these plans. There is no analysis in this inventory. It is strictly like a cut and paste exercise for what is in these plans. And if I choose the category of land use, what pops up for you, let me slip this one, is a suite of boxes. They're color-coded. There's a lot of information that is here. But if you look at the right-hand side, you can select from any one of these given subtopic areas. If you just want to see plans that are related to hazards, you can select just hazards. I have them all selected. Or if you're only interested in what plans does Estes Park have, you can select just Estes Park. But I've selected everything here. And then along the left-hand side, going from left to right, you can see that the jurisdiction name is included, the plan name is included, and then what is the hazard that this inventory is being sorted by. If you go to one of these colored boxes, it pops up with definition here around this is the category we're looking at, and the cut and paste is that plan text at the bottom, which is able to be used by any planner to then go in and see what is the strategy that this plan is trying to address around that topic. So it's a pretty nifty little tool. We're really excited to be able to put it to use. And let me get back here to see if I can.
Betty, can I ask you a question on
Yeah.
that? The MPO has a lot of plans.
Yes.
Are they included in that in some way?
Yes, so we have plans from the county, from the municipalities, from regional conveners like the MPO,
Okay.
conservation plans from conservation entities who have land use planning included, educational institutions, and there are some state agency plans that are also included in this
Okay.
sorting tool.
When I saw the list of sort of municipalities and some of the entities, I didn't see like the MPO or some of maybe the others.
Yeah, you have to scroll down.
Okay.
The list goes
Oh,
way
okay,
down. And
okay.
so
So we
as
didn't
you
see
kind
the
of get in
entire
there and play around with it,
Sure.
you can sort by those entities as well.
Wonderful, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Thank you for the
Commissioner Shadid-
question.
Yeah, Commissioner Shattuck McNally has a question.
Welcome, everybody, so glad to see all of you today, thanks for being here. I haven't seen anything this comprehensive. Sorry about that, thank you, it's Monday. Thank you all for being here, it's really great to see all of you. So I haven't seen anything this extensive and comprehensive before. Is this something that we have created, or if you have an exemplar or other parts of the state or the country? I mean, to have all these in one place, and this could be a really strong tool for a lot of people, organizations. I mean, this is, to me, wow. So I'm curious about that.
We had a fantastic intern. You know, I can't say enough about the interns who volunteer their time and are utilizing the expertise that they are gathering in school to help us bring along the ideas that we have. You know, this is the kind of project that we all wish we had the time to sit down and go through all the plans, and we were fortunate enough to have a really great student to come up with the idea. This was the idea of the student to put it into a searchable, filterable database like this. So kudos goes out to this student. I don't know that this has been put together quite this way in any other place. I haven't seen it. I haven't really done too much of a search, although the student did when he was beginning his work. So I do think that it's great. The other thing I will say is that although there are 50 plans within this database, as we have begun the drought work, which was a new topic, we're finding more plans that need to be incorporated. So 50 sounds like a lot, and it probably is just the baseline for the kind of plans that we need to
Well,
carve.
I don't know if the student's still around. Would you just express I'm impressed and my gratitude and what a fantastic tool and useful tool. So I think
Thank
this
you.
is going to be great for the region as well. So well done. Just really impressed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we've created now the regional plans inventory, the beginnings of it. Now we need to keep it up. That will be the next task. But the question begs, okay, so how are we going to utilize this sorting tool? And for this, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Roberts.
Good morning, Commissioners, Lorinda, colleagues. Josh Roberts, Mitigation Coordinator out of the Office of Emergency Management. I haven't seen an inventory like this personally. Fantastic tool, great segue, Heidi. If you can imagine 50 plans in the inventory and still yet more plans out there that haven't necessarily been inventoried according to this with a smart sheet here. But what next, right? So there's a lot of plans out there, but how do we structurally integrate them so that there's no conflict or no gaps, but they're all sort of talking to one another? And that's the effort of this next project, the Plan Integration for Resilient Scorecard, or PIRS. PIRS is what we refer to it as, that a team of us are working on. It's a partnership project with some folks out of the Texas A&M University, Hazard Reduction and Recovery Center, an Institute of Excellence sort of in that field. They received a grant to undertake this kind of multi-hazard, how do we integrate plans together, look-see at 2 jurisdictions across the country, and we were one of them that they're working with. And thanks to you guys and Heidi, $50,000 of local funds are helping to offset that share there that we're responsible for. It's a core team of folks across county departments, including myself and Lori, the Office of Emergency Management, Heidi, and then, of course, Rebecca, Matt, and Leslie, and others with CPIRS or Community Development. So what they're going to be doing, we're going to be doing, is evaluating a core set of plans within that network, analyzing them with respect to risk across wildfire and flood and maybe extreme heat hazards. We hope to work that one in there as well. But when I say a core set of plans, we can't evaluate all 50 or 50 plus, but we've got to select for them those most impactful plans for them to analyze with respect to those hazards there. And essentially what they're going to do is they're going to code, fancy word, but really just look at these plans that we give them, our important ones, and the policies, strategies, or actions, objectives, things that are in those plans. They're going to code those in a geospatial context, which means they're going to pull out a policy, strategy, action, and they're going to plot it on a map, right? And they're going to do that with all of these plans that we give them. And once you put things on a map, it starts to materialize where there might be conflict in the plans, where there might be gaps or things aren't addressed with respect to these hazards in these plans that we're giving them. And so that's what they're going to do. We've kicked off the project last month, August 11th, and currently right now just talked with the project manager with Texas A&M, and he's got some students and others on staff there looking at our comprehensive land use plan. That's the one that they're sort of starting with, looking and doing that coding. But they just kicked it off. It'll probably last 6-7 months or so. It'll be done by next spring. And really the outcome of the effort, it's to form efforts that we should take to better integrate these plans. And it's really just building upon that foundation that Noah, the CSU intern, laid with the rough sort of assessment of all our plans in that planning inventory. But it's going to help, this project is going to help, okay, structurally in the plans, what do we need to do differently to make sure to reduce conflict in those plans? It's going to inform efforts as to what other policy strategies or actions that we should take in order to remove or reduce that conflict, or if there's a gap to address that particular issue. And I think it's just going to continue, this amazing effort here to bring about an alignment of all our plans and our efforts that cross-cut departments, that cross-cut jurisdictions, that cross-cut organizations. So I think it's a cool project, and that's the intent of the PIRS project there.
Commissioner Shannock McNally.
Got my mic on this time. Again, wow. So I have a couple of questions for clarification. So I see a trademark by the PIRS logo. So is that Texas A&M's or their tool? Is that their trademark?
It's the tool's trademark. I think it started originally by someone out of the University of South Carolina, I believe. But obviously academic partnerships, the folks at A&M really have done the most in terms of utilization of the tool and maintaining it and tweaking it. Some of our projects are going to help them tweak it a little too.
So when you talk about the $50,000, that was something that came out of our office, or and who else is paying for this? Who's the funding partners? I know it's probably you, Josh, with all your pennies and stuff.
Yeah, amazingly,
You're-
it's not just my time.
I'm
you
just
know,
kidding.
on this
I'm
one.
kidding.
But no, Heidi, if you want to speak to
They-
the local
they-
budget, and then I can talk about the
Yeah.
grant.
Yeah, this was part of a service project that was approved during last year's budget period to be part of the county's Office of Sustainability and Climate budget. And that's just a match. It's a match for us to be able to be part of one of those two pilot programs. The remainder, though, of the work that's really being done under peers is through other funding, grant funding, and then the other community, right?
Yep. So Texas A&M, they received a grant through the Department of Homeland Security. I can't remember the grant program name, but I know it was, I believe it was through their Science and Technology Division or their Innovation Division. That's where the grant is out of. That's funding their time. Yeah.
Thanks, Bench. So I see, besides just, I see a lot of good governance here. Number one, good taxpayer steward dollars, because if we have 50 plans or there's plans we forgot about, we don't need to. I could go there, but I won't. I'm going to be quiet. A lot of people are redoing plans right now that just did 4 years ago, so I'll just leave that there. I feel like this would help us know, hey, we forgot about that plan was already done, and there was already these findings, so maybe we could do it differently so we don't repeat and cycle back. But also, I can see if other people are working in the same area, we could leverage resources, reduce the need for funding for some of these things, and make sure we're not just repeating things that we have already paid for and looked at. So would that be a fair assessment of one of the benefits of this? I mean, it's common sense, but still, I just see tremendous benefits in this in so many areas.
Yeah, it's a great question and great point, and I think so. That the short answer is yes. I mean, if you can imagine 50 plans, 50 plus plans, all kind of have their siloed is not the right term, but you know they've got a mission, you know, that they're focusing on with respect to that plan, and certainly will bring about, you know, and other partners to sit on that planning committee or to help advise that plan. But it's really, really hard, other than just to have a plan point in the reference section to another plan. It's really difficult to structurally integrate some of the details and nuance of these plans, and I think that's exactly what this project hopes to sort of tease out. Really at the high level, where's our glaring, where are those, and not here because we haven't gone through our plan, but an example of in another jurisdiction they worked. You had the hazard mitigation plan that, you know, really sort of outlined the need to not develop in a certain area, but you had a land use plan that called for development in that area. And so, again, not ours, another example, but those things are easy to happen because it's just really difficult to structurally integrate these plans. And so I think this project is just that way to tease out, hey, here's a glaring conflict, here's a glaring gap, and now through efficiencies of collaboration and working together, let's do something about it. So I think you're spot on.
Well, and that was going to be one of my other questions, was like, this could be, like you said, plans of conflict where, especially with important land use decisions about where not to maybe develop because of the hazards. So thank you for answering my questions. I'm just wowed. This is so impressive. Thank you.
Commissioner Cavalos, any questions?
Just a clarifying one, and then the more substantive one, I believe you've already addressed, so thank you. And that is trying to better understand when there's perhaps a conflict or there are gaps between various plans. And of course, this part of the work is focused on hazard mitigation work, and then we'll be getting into land use. But my question for clarification is, earlier you mentioned the Texas A&M students and professors are looking at the comprehensive land use plan. Do you mean our 2019 comprehensive master plan?
I believe that's the one.
So this won't, yes, so this won't necessarily be looking at specifically at our land use code, or does that come later on, or?
Well, the comprehensive plan will inform the land use code ultimately. So if there's changes to be made to the comp plan, or if it really alters it and we need to look at that, then that would inform that, Commissioner.
Great, thank you, Matt. And just a comment, I want to concur with my colleague that this is really amazing work as part of our Climate Smart Future Ready. This is a very clear example of the progress we've been making and what are some tangible outcomes of this work and how it will help us to be more resilient, better able to adapt to situations and not lose sight of the importance of mitigation. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll obviously be sharing this. Are the other jurisdictions excited about this too? Because we're evaluating a lot, not just our own plans, but plans from a lot of jurisdictions, and they might not realize either the gaps or the inconsistencies between plans. I know in Fort Collins, we adopted a lot of plans. I used to say we had plan fatigue sometimes. And, I don't know how carefully, that work was done, that some didn't maybe conflict with others. So.
Right, and thank you for asking that question, because that's what I was wanting to mention, is that overall, the action teams through Climate Smart and Future Ready are populated by members of our municipalities. Depending on what the topic is, they may be a planner or they may not be a planner. But regardless of whether they are or not, the actions that they are looking to develop are not additional plans because of the plan fatigue, because of maybe we've just completed a plan. So understanding better where these plans are connecting, where everyone thought somebody else was doing it, that sort of a gap or an overlap, has come up time and again in our action teams to know maybe we aren't asking the right questions when we're going through a plan update or a plan review. Are we asking the right question? What are the members in our communities who are touching our boundaries, who are influencing the kind of work that we're trying to do? What is it that they're wanting to improve upon or address differently when they do finally do their next update? So the PERS example is a great one in that we're really going to try to get at a specific topic, hazards, by overlapping some of these plans together that maybe haven't been looked at in this way before. So this will be a really great example to see how we can utilize the inventory information.
Well, yeah, and some of them are older plans, clearly, and
Yes.
right, I mean, you may have had a different plan about development, and then you did your drought study, and, did you always go back to change that other plan, right? I mean, it is easy for things to fall through and then just one other thing that I want to say before I turn it over to my colleagues is that I am vice chair of the Resilient Counties Innovation Council, which is part of the National Association of Counties, and I think it would be great for you all once you get, some of the work done, like if you'd be willing to kind of present to that group. And it's interesting that some of this stuff came up in the South where their kind of emergencies are very different than ours, and yet, floods and tornadoes and hurricanes, kind of, they're dealing with a whole different kind of thing, but still similar challenges, yeah. So, thank you. I saw Commissioner Shattuck McNally's hand up first.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Josh, and maybe hi too, maybe others are talking about this, but, of course, where my brain's going, because there's a forest tracker, and we have our GIS, and then there was the Black Diamond plan from the U.S. Forest Service that maybe needs to be relooked at. There's the fireshed maps, there's the coalition for, there's all this work happening along with our biomass and also maybe some of those sensitive inward-facing maps about where important infrastructure is. So is there a way, I'm assuming this will help align all of this, but some of this might be really important to keep internal-facing because we would need to know how these might really endanger critical infrastructure, but some of it would be outward-facing for our partners and other folks to look at. And this would also help inform our work if we needed to use resources and scarce funding for certain ways. Would that be a fair assessment as well?
It's a great question, great point. One thing maybe to clarify is, the PEERS process, it's not a Rosetta Stone, right? I mean, it's not the silver bullet. So, but to your point, especially in this beautiful part of the world that we call home here in Larimer County, there is just so much good modeling, good data, good science, intellectual horsepower with regard to hazard mitigation, risk reduction, there's a lot of good work that's already been done, and it presents a challenge too to just sync all of that stuff up. This process, and Commissioner Stevens, to clarify, I think a point you were making as well. Like, there's no way we can do this Pierce project in the budget that we have and the time that we have to analyze deeply all 50 plus of those plans. So we got to select those. And what they've told us, there's a fair bit of flexibility in the process, but they've told us around about 10 plans or so. It just kind of depends on the volume, the depth of those plans that we got to go into. But we're going to have to select, those most important plans for them. And coming back, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, as the thought was, as we tackle those hard ones, now we have a model for how we do the other ones in the future. And I think, the approach that we're taking here too, it's sort of the teach a man to fish approach. So they're doing some things, but we are all with them in lockstep. And conceivably, this is a process that we can also do moving forward. So I think let's take a stab at the hard ones, and then over time, it'll kind of just help us make sure that we're aligning, in some of these plans. So,
Great, and I like the Rosetta Stone, because I was like, oh,
yeah.
I'm really blown away. This is really impressive. Thank you.
Hollis, did you have a question?
Just, I think most of my things I wanted to bring up have already been addressed, so thank you for that. I suppose one relevant additional question would be, and maybe you got into this, you started getting into this, Josh, and that is, how might what we learn here be replicated in other jurisdictions throughout Colorado, or perhaps the region, the West?
Yeah, great question. One thing I failed to mention earlier is, and I think you brought it up, Commissioner Stevens, but Texas A&M, they're in Texas. They don't experience the same, they don't have the same hazard profile that we do, right? And so them taking a look at the wildfire hazard specifically, I believe we're the second jurisdiction. I think it's what they said. So their experience with us is informing this process, this model, what they're doing, and that will in turn, after they're done with us, that's going to help them apply this model to other places in the country. They've historically been focused on the flood hazard. Really, that's kind of where this was born out of, but it's adaptable across hazards, and that's part of, I think, to your question, is they'll spend some time with us. We'll make it super hard for them. They'll learn, and then they'll be able to apply that in other jurisdictions.
Thank you. We can move on.
Back to me, yeah. So the next item we'll talk about is our hazard mitigation plan update. So you all are probably familiar with that, but our current plan that was written in 2021 is set to expire next year, 2026. They're on 5-year cycles as per FEMA guidelines. And having a current, so last written or updated within 5 years, and approved plan by FEMA, it provides for our eligibility for FEMA Hazard Mitigation Assistance Grant programs, which we've been the recipient of. In fact, our Climate Smart Future Ready framework and our Master Water Plan all was funded in part due to a FEMA Hazard Mitigation Assistance Grant. So we've got to update this hazard mitigation plan to ensure that we maintain eligibility with those things moving forward. Additionally, another cool thing is that we at the county level take on the burden of ensuring our hazard mitigation plan is quote unquote multi-jurisdictional. So, and that is to allow other jurisdictions and participating entities like special districts, fire districts within the county, they participate in this with us, and we sort of write the plan. And now when that plan is approved, it's not just the county who maintains their eligibility, but these jurisdictions now also have their own eligibility to pursue their own, block of FEMA hazard mitigation grant programs. So it's something that we do not just for county, but for our partners within the county. And I'll mention it's, all too often I think these hazard mitigation plans really get pinned on, well, that's the only reason why you do it, is to maintain your eligibility to get funding. Not exactly. That's a big piece, right? Because it takes resources to do stuff. But a big piece of it is it's really an intentional time where we set aside as professionals and colleagues here in the county to talk about mitigating hazards, reducing risks. And and across jurisdictional, across organizational boundaries. And you guys well know that at the end of the day, the plan is one thing, but it's really the process where the magic happened. And that this is, in regards to hazard mitigation and risk reduction, there's magic in this process. It's funded through a FEMA grant, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant, working through the state's Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. $200,000 was our grant award that we received, and of that, $50,000 is the local share. And we're doing this in a way to where we can equate our time that we spend on this and provide an in-kind value. So the hope is that we don't actually pay cash; it's just in-kind value that we've met our local share. Now, we put out a bid for this, evaluated 12 responses to our request for proposals, and we selected a vendor. That vendor is called WSP, it's a planning firm, and they are helping us with this project. Another cool piece I wanted to tone out is, as part of this hazard mitigation plan update, we also worked into the proposal and their scope of work to help City of Fort Collins and City of Loveland maintain their community rating system rating. So the FEMA CRS rating, I think Fort Collins has a Class 2 and City of Loveland has a Class 6. There are certain things that they've got to do in order to maintain that rating, and through this scope of work, we're going to help them do that. And that rating ultimately, think flood insurance, the lower the rating, then the more discounts, that individuals needing to get or wanting to get flood insurance within those jurisdictions, they could get. So it's also a way to help folks in their individual pocketbooks that live in Fort Collins and Loveland. Project is started. We kicked off the project a couple of weeks after the Pierce project. So at the end of last month, a couple of weeks ago, the next step in this project is to identify the hazards that we might be affected by here in Larimer. We've got pretty good imaginations at the Office of Emergency Management, so we're all over that. And then it's just to assess that risk, over that long term. They're going to do some mapping and geospatial analysis things. We're going to have to engage public in certain ways. We'll distribute a public survey sort of tool here pretty soon. We'll have a few meetings. All in all, the hazard mitigation plan update is going to take about a year. And you heard me with the Pierce project, that's going to take 6 or 7 months. So here's another cool thing, right, is we're going to be done with our Pierce project, that is, where are those gaps, where are those conflicts, before the hazard mitigation plan is updated, and we're going to roll those findings that we found in the Pierce process into our hazard mitigation plan. So another structural way to integrate, this stuff in this work. I kind of, if I can, the last thing I might mention is that there's tremendous planning efforts that have been undertaken in recent years with respect to resilience, hazard mitigation, risk reduction, and now we're leaning into how do we help these inform one another. And I do think that we're tip of the spear, in these efforts as to how we're cross-cutting some things. And I think all in all, it's in recognition that we shouldn't plan for today, but we should plan today for tomorrow, right? Climate smart, future ready. And so I think these plans, all plans, they set the framework for our actions, but these efforts, we're making sure that our actions are going to meet the moment tomorrow. So I'm really proud to be with the team that's working on that, and I think that's a big takeaway from these efforts. Thank you.
Josh. Commissioner Shia McNally.
Well said, and you're proud to be the team. We're very proud of all of you and the work that you're doing. Pretty impressive. So when you talked about planning today for tomorrow, and we have lots of, literally, climate's changing, conditions are changing. We could have another heat wave or natural disaster, and just like this, I'm still dealing with my scratchy throat when that big, huge smoke weather front or whatever came through on Friday. I'm thinking really outside the box, but is this plan where the tool should be able to not only look forward for planning for the future, but if something did a major event, how would it inform maybe, so you don't have to start this over, how would this inform those plans going forward now that, I think about like Block Hollow, that happened and now there's more danger. So is there a possibility that has something built in the plan to tweak, so you don't have to do the whole assessment, but just that area, kind of help it to tweak to go forward, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And in short answer, yes. I mean, it's the thing about disaster is they're social creations, right? In the case of wildfire or flood, I mean, those hazards occur naturally, right? The disaster part comes in when at the intersection of those naturally occurring hazards and where we're building, how we're living, where our stuff is, our infrastructure is. And so I think, efforts spent on the front end prior to the bad thing happening, the boom or whatever we want to call it, to reduce that risk, well, it's only going to help, lessen or reduce that impact of when that disaster does occur. And so I think, we can't wait until disaster to think about and to talk about how do we prevent the next one, right? I mean, mitigation is something and risk reduction is something we got to be talking about at all phases of the disaster life cycle. I used to, when I would guest lecture, I would have these, this little point that I would talk to students about, and I would ask them, what do you call a tornado in the middle of an open field? And they'd look around like it was a trick question, and I tell them it's no trick question. It's called a tornado, right? Oh, yeah. Well, what do you call a tornado when it moves through a downtown populated area? Tornado. Nope. It's a disaster, right? I mean, so I think whenever you understand that disasters are social creations, well, there are also things that we can uncreate. We just got to think and work hard enough to do so in advance of that bad thing happening. Sorry for the soapbox there, y'all.
Thank you, Josh.
Okay. Move on to Matt.
Well, it's hard to follow Josh, you know. Thanks, Commissioners. Hey, I got that throat thing you got. Thank you, Commissioners. Lorinda. Matt Lafferty, Community Development Department. Stepping in for Rebecca. She couldn't be here today, so she asked if I'd step in and help out this morning to explain that we're starting the project now, the Development Rights, Transfer Development Rights Project, TDRs as we call it. This is just another one of those land use tools that we're trying to create. We had one back in the past called the Fossil Creek Reservoir Area where we did TDUs, TDRs, and it was very successful. And then that was abandoned when that project was complete. And so we see some value now in readopting a TDR program, something that we're trying to figure out how we could apply on a big level, talking about the entire county and what types of resources and issues we can talk about. It fits right into the hazard mitigation realm. How can we mitigate hazard mitigation through TDRs? Maybe how can we preserve agriculture, natural resources, types of those things. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, not that I could talk for an hour on this, but we're going to be talking to you all on Wednesday evening with the Planning Commission. And so I don't want to delve too far into this, but it is a program that we were just kicking off. Logan Simpson, which is a local firm here, planning firm here in Fort Collins, has been hired as our consultant on this. We had a very good application process, a lot of qualified people and firms, and we were happy to bring them on, and we're finalizing that contract and will be beginning work shortly here, and we anticipate wrapping up this project September of next year. And so a lot of these things that we're working on in this group are all going to come to fruition next year, and we should be seeing some big changes in the environment.
Commissioner Cavalos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Matt. Recognizing that we'll get into a more in-depth conversation on Wednesday night with the Planning Commission, I wonder if, with those bullet points that are listed, could you speak more about responsible development patterns, how the developing this transfer of development rights program will contribute to responsible growth? I mean, that's a big issue that we hear from folks, population growth, sprawl, and all of those kinds of things. How might TDR program help with growing in a more responsible way, in a more sustainable way, perhaps?
Thank you, Commissioner Cavalos. As you're aware, our comprehensive plan is a growth management plan. It aims to move growth towards the urbanized area where services can be provided and where there's adequate public facilities to service those types of things. From a TDR standpoint, this adds a tool to our toolbox that allows us to look outside into the rural areas of our community and say, where do we want development not to occur? You know, where are there hazards? Where are there agricultural uses, open spaces that we want to preserve? And how can we provide those property owners an opportunity to take their development rights that they have in those rural sectors and move those to another location where they're more appropriately used, predominantly in the urban areas of our municipalities like Fort Collins, Loveland, Wellington, Berthoud. And if we can get that to happen, then what we're doing is we're causing conservation in the long term in those rural areas where we want to see things preserved and protected from the future development.
And we're clustering the appropriate development closer to the urban areas, closer to the growth management areas, and that makes sense from a
Yes.
sustainability standpoint.
Or putting it directly within the urbanized areas
Or
themselves.
putting it directly. Great. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner? I just have a couple things. So first of all, I'm glad we're exploring this tool because I think it's really relevant. It must require a lot of participation with all the municipalities because they're often the receivers, right? There's the giver of the, right, and then the receivers. So are we, is that work that Logan Simpson's going to help do? Is some of that outreach to like, I mean, so some of the question is, do you want to receive that density?
Yeah, that's an awesome observation. And our previous program, which was down in the False Creek area, worked directly with the city of Fort Collins. And yes, we're going to have to work directly with them. Logan Simpson, along with our staff and others, will probably be working closely with the municipalities. I suppose at some point we'll have to use the commissioners in to have some of those conversations with them as well to see who is willing to be the recipients of some of this density. Because if we can't find a place to put it, then a program really doesn't work. And then, then we'll have to start thinking, well, do we think bigger than just the regional context of Larimer County? Do we start to look outside of our boundaries for partners or whatnot? But our first goal is to work directly with our municipalities. I know that there's some of them that do want to work with us, and we'll find room for that to happen in.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of them share our goals around preserving open spaces and ag land. And so I think that part is easy sell. I guess it's whether they want, where they want their density as well. So, I mean, it's a careful kind of balancing act to kind of figure this out. But I think I think it's a really great tool. And so I'm glad we're exploring it. Another reason that I'm glad we're exploring that is because in the work that the governor wants to do around the strategic growth plan, it's specifically called out as a tool. And my guess is, I mean, this is just a crystal ball kind of situation, is that this will be encouraged because there are, it makes sense to grow in the right places, right? But it also would encourage some of the density that the state and the governor's team has been desiring, hoping that will lead to more affordable housing as well with some of that density. So I guess to be continued, but I think embarking on this work proactively is really important. And there again, I think that this is a way to make sure the density happens. And so those spaces that might have those disasters or, extreme weather events might not be as densely populated, and so those disasters might not be as impactful. So, perfect, thank you. Well, that's all.
Commissioner Stevens, just really off the top of my head, and you brought up that the strategic plan element, which is going to come later next year for the county, we're going to have to add that into our comprehensive plan. The interesting thing is looking at some of the precursory data that's coming out of there and saying that you need to include these things into your comprehensive plan. They're actually looking at Larimer County and the Estes comprehensive plan as examples of what's been done well. So I think we're well along our way in a lot of the things that we're doing, and I think TDRs are just going to take us that next step.
Perfect, thank you. Well, I look forward to the conversation on, is it Wednesday night? I don't look that far ahead of my calendar. It gets too scary. Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
I feel like you both have been reading my mind today. But Matt, I was thinking exactly about that, or the Estes plan. That was over a year, and Leslie, you were really the driver and leader, and you were helping out quite a bit. But it was really done in tandem with the town and working together. And we had, these committees talking and sharing information. It was really looking at a unique situation, trying to preserve the Estes Valley, and also where do you kind of drive density and how do you manage all of that. And it was interesting conversations that I think we're still, progressing through. But I was thinking the exact same thing. That was a really interesting conversation about everyone talking about where should density be and looking at that together. So I'm really glad you brought that up, that example. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, well, so just to wrap it up, with regard to Climate Smart Future Ready, if anyone listening has questions about what we've been implementing, the kinds of things we've talked about before, there are a couple of links on this slide. One goes to the annual report that we produce, which is a storyboard, electronic storyboard, and the other is the dashboard, so folks can go and visit there. And we do have a series of these knowledge break sessions that we offer to the community to come learn more detail. As a matter of fact, on Wednesday this week, it is Mr. Roberts to speak a little bit about hazard mitigation. So we have a different topic every month, and I encourage folks who are interested to sign up, come visit us. Thank you very much for your time for today.
Thank you. Any, Lorenda?
I would love to just say how exciting it is every time I meet with Heidi. I hear about how we are kind of force multipliers as an organization. So I want to remind folks there are only 2 people who work on this dedicated in the county, and what they're able to do to generate energy around discussions and teamwork and the way that the region is pulled together from this work is really exciting. The way that we can leverage other resources. Heidi is a master at finding other people to pay for this work. And so we really appreciate bringing folks like Texas A&M in to dig through rather than have our own resources work on that. So, I think we are a convener, we are a facilitator, we are a data analyst organization. We sort of fill the gaps to keep this moving. And I just want to say thank you to Heidi and to Abby for the work that you do to keep all the balls in the air. There are many balls in the air at one time, and you are really good at it. And these things that we're talking about now are tangible for the benefit of our community members. They're translating from conversations to ideas to actions, which is really exciting to see this plan progress in this way really so quickly.
Well, thank you for that, but I will say, it's the volunteers who come to the action teams that make all the difference. And folks internally, like these 2 fine gentlemen, as well as all of our partners in the community who are really volunteering their time, that equates to way more than 2 people who are spending their efforts in this. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioners, any closing words that you want? Commissioner Shattuck and Nellie?
I just, again, want to reiterate, just my mind is blown. I'm so impressed. But I guess really, really thinking about the work across departments and sectors, which is really helping reach goals in all those areas, but to see that intersection. But also, I really like the word that you said, in conflict. Not that we want to be, it's not that we're in conflict, but the plans and the work might be in conflict, and maybe that some things we can't, but sometimes we want to make sure that we don't have that intersection, that there's some things that we don't realize they're happening that maybe are contradicting each other or something. And that's happening with some other things that I had recently happen with some state and other organizations that I've been sitting on and thinking, wow, that would have been nice if they had found that over a year ago. A lot of time has gone through and some wasted time and wasted effort. So I just wanted to just say thanks again. I'm just really impressed and just really grateful. I always talk about being a lucky commissioner, but I'll say it again. We have some amazing folks such as you here working, and I just want to thank you for your work, because I just think this is going to be leaving a legacy going forward for this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I just want to publicly commit to doing this work. I think this is really important work. And, what we're really talking about is protecting our environment and taking care of our people. And so, I think that there's no one who would be against that. I can't imagine that. So I just want to, just say that we appreciate the work that you're doing. It's important not only to us, I think, but to our entire community and all the partners that you just talked about. So we're going to forge ahead and do this work because it's what we need to do. So thank you. With that, it is 11:50. We finished early. Thank you, everyone.